The Prophet ﷺ said that the self is the greatest enemy.
Yeah.
Can you please speak to the modern idea of the importance of self-love and the ways that it is nurtured?
Yeah, I mean, that's a really interesting question, because on the one hand, it's very important to have a kind of, you don't want to fall into self-loathing, which is not healthy, but you also don't want to fall into narcissism, which is very unhealthy. So they're both problems, like hating the self, feeling bad about the self, and also being in love with the self. So it's natural to love yourself, and I think you have to. I mean, we should want for others what we want for ourselves, but primarily we have to want for ourselves good. قُوا أَنفُسَكُمْ, save yourselves, وَأَهْلِيكُمْ, and then your families. But the most important thing is yourself. If you haven't saved yourself, then you're wasting your time trying to save anybody else. So from that point of view, it's good. But on the other hand, we have a very unhealthy self-esteem movement, which is making everybody feel good about being completely less than mediocre, achieving nothing. And in reality, people know something's wrong. So they do all this self-esteem. You know, I mean, I saw this because when I was young, you had first place, second place, third place. So, but when my sons were doing martial arts, I went to the first tournament I went with them, and they gave everybody a trophy. And I couldn't even believe it. It's like, what is going on? Everybody got a trophy. And it was all for self-esteem, because kids feel bad that they didn't win. That's the whole problem of the equity movement. Because the Prophet ﷺ said, لا تزال أمتي بخير ما تفاوتوا. My ummah will remain in a good condition as long as they have differences amongst them. You know, there's سابقون الأولون من المهاجرين والأنصار. They have a maqam that we'll never achieve. We will never get there. But even amongst them, Abu Bakr had a maqam none of them could get. They couldn't touch him. Omar had a maqam, they couldn't touch him. So even amongst the Sahaba, you know, Amr ibn al-As, he asked the Prophet once, you know, he said that he thought that he was the one that the Prophet loved the most. Because when the Prophet spoke to people, they always thought that they were the most, like, the one he loved the most. And it was genuine, obviously, the Prophet ﷺ, because he gave people his full attention. And so when he asked him, you know, he said Abu Bakr and then Umar, and then he realized, like, I'm way down the list, right? So that's important to know. And there's nothing wrong with that. You know, a really wonderful Catholic saint, her name is Saint Teresa. She was a French saint, but she was she died very young in a monastery. But she said that she realized that she could never be like the great saints. So she said, because she couldn't do great works. So she decided to do little works with great love. So she's called the saint of little works with great love. And that's the beauty of our deen, is that whoever you are, wherever you are, and whatever conditions you're in, you can get close to Allah.